I'm here with Rex Buchanan. He's the interim director of the Kansas Geological Survey, and he's moderating a very interesting panel. Rex, can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, it's a panel aimed primarily at looking at issues of transportation of energy, but maybe more specifically crude oil.
So if you could just frame this debate for us, how significant is this discussion? What's at stake here?
Well, I think it's huge. Obviously, you all know that this has been an ongoing controversy in the U.S. and whether or not we're going to move this oil by pipelines or trains or how we're going to do it, I think is a really central conversation to how that oil is going to get moved and how it's going to get used. There's certainly the sense that the construction of the pipeline has been a big issue in the United States. The upshot of that, and maybe the delay of that, has meant that an awful lot of that oil is getting moved in ways that by rail or by truck, in ways that might be in some senses more risky in terms of the infrastructure that they move through. Obviously pipelines have their own issues, so that sort of debate, I think, is for both sides of the border is a really good one to have.
And now we're here, with GSA. What kind of insight can geologists bring to the discussion?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think geologists tend to have a little more long-term view than maybe most folks do. They also know the natural resources. They know the natural resources and the environmental consequences of decisions that people make. I think to a certain extent, this whole conversation has got caught up in the conversation about should we use fossil fuels or not? And at times, arguments about things like construction of a pipeline or hydraulic fracturing, some of these really contentious issues, to a certain extent, stand in for the whole question of should we be using fossil fuels or not? How concerned should we be about climate change? And if we're that concerned about climate change, should we be looking more at renewable fuels and less at these fossil fuels that are being moved that way? I think geologists bring a good perspective on all of those things. The environmental consequences of climate change, renewables versus fossil fuels, and they know something about the economics of all of that. So you put that all together, and I think they're in a good position to be part of this conversation, certainly.
So how involved do you think geologists should be in the discussion between the use of fossil fuels and renewable energy sources?
Probably more involved than they tend to be. I think there are an awful lot of geologists who like to do what it is they got into geology to do, which is maybe look at rocks or help produce oil or water or some sort of natural resource. But again, because of the perspective that I was just talking about, they tend to know things that not everybody involved knows. And the result is, if they can be sort of lured into that conversation, or if they're more engaged in that conversation, they can bring perspectives that you're not going to hear from other people. And I think in some senses that's why this panel has taken place, is an attempt to engage those folks, make them see that public policy side of the world that they can contribute to and should be contributing to.
Great. Well, we're going to have a great Canadian perspective on that, and I think you'll do a great job of luring geologists into the conversation. So thank you so much for being here today, Rex.
Thank you.